We will go ahead and kick this off. Really appreciate everybody being here today. Thank you for joining our webinar session to learn a little bit more about wejo, our connected vehicle data, and really what it can do as it relates to real-time situations. This specific conversation is going to be around emergency evacuations from disasters like hurricanes. We're really lucky to work with a partner like Moonshadow who can really bring our massive connected vehicle data set to light. My name is Blair Bauman. I'm the Director of US Marketing for wejo, and we're very excited to have our partner Moonshadow here today, their CEO Imar, to talk about really the analysis that they've been able to produce with our data. So today we're chiming in from 3 different time zones with myself, Yop, and wejo, who's wejo's Director of Solutions Engineering. And I'm going to give you kind of a quick brief overview of what you'll walk away with from today's session. Yop will then share a bit more about wejo data. And then finally, we'll hand it over to Imar with Moonshadow, who can really show you the real results and the really fascinating insights that we've been able to see from the use of our data and our partnership with Moonshadow. So Imar is presenting today. Imar, if you will, and if you'll just everybody bear with us today, we're on the technology of that is COVID and Zoom. So again, I'll give us a quick brief intro into wejo. Some of you are more familiar than others. Yop will then talk a little bit more specifically about our data, and then Imar will really close this out with why you're here. So what is our data able to show? How has Moonshadow been able to do that? And really what have we been able to do with who we are and how it matters in some of these really real-time solutions, like hurricanes. So, what is connected vehicle data? If you own a new car, chances are that your car is connected. That means that it contains sensors that send data to really improve the way that we work, live, and travel. Completely anonymized, but wejo has partnerships with some of the largest OEMs in an exclusive way that really allow us to harness the power of that data for things like this exact concept. So how we're able to work with cities, with states, to really change the way that they respond to real-time issues, to the way that people are moving about when things happen in the world. So instead of using GPS devices or traditional infrastructure, wejo provides an extremely accurate real-time opportunity from a data perspective in the cars that we all drive every day that are already on the road. So, really what does that look like? It looks like 1 in 28 vehicles. It looks like wejo data having coverage of 95% of the roads in the United States. And really that 5% drop off we see in some kind of, rural areas. But that's still quite competitive with what some of your traditional mapping apps use and have access to. We look at a 3-second capture rate. So we're very quickly capturing the data and getting it to our customers like Moonshadow to analyze. And then, at our peak of data production, we're looking at 650,000 data points per second. So the wejo value, here's a little bit of a more detailed picture at really the world's largest data set of really authentic, high resolution connected vehicle data. This is no doubt superior to mobile and static mobility data. So things like vehicle, infrastructure, traffic signals, aftermarket GPS devices that a lot of companies have been traditionally using. We're now creating a whole new space and a whole new data asset that is really providing things that are much quicker, much more accurate. So you can see some facts and figures here that kind of relate to what I said previously, but a little bit more granular in terms of the vehicle volume, the data point volume, and yeah, next slide. So again, wejo, we work with this massive data set, but because of that, we have a range of data and insights and tools that make this data asset work for various customers, various partners, various entities, one being Moonshadow, who you're going to hear from here shortly. So we work in stream and batch data. We also provide data intelligence and working in our data labs. So knowing that this is a massive data infrastructure, how do we really refine that and provide those insights to traffic engineers, to departments of transportation, to various partners that we work with that really need specific insights to come out of our data. We know that not everybody has the infrastructure to really deal with the massive amount of raw data that we have. So we've really worked as a business to refine that and provide that. So something that we're really excited to talk about is our traffic intelligence product. You can check us out on wejo.com and get a demo there from our team. We're working in data labs now, which makes it easy for people like myself who have a marketing background, not necessarily a data background, but I can read a CSV file and I can really understand what does this mean on any given road, any given segment, any given day of time, what are speeds, what are volumes. I mean, it's absolutely fascinating. And then we're also working with developers. So we know that that's a big audience for this data. And how are we really providing a backend platform for developers to use our API in an open way that gets them to use our data and kind of the flexible ways that they need to. So this just gives you a quick snapshot of really how we work in some different kind of world sectors with different people. And so now I'm going to hand it over to Jaap, our Director of Solutions Engineering. He is fabulous, and we'll give you a little bit of a better dive into wejo, what our data is, and then we'll quickly get to why you're here, which is to see, wow, what does this data do with wejo and Moonshadow? It's pretty fascinating.
Right. Thank you, Blair, for the introduction there. You're making me feel all warm and fuzzy now. Yeah, good morning, good afternoon, good evening, everybody, wherever you are in the world. Great to have you on the webinar. And as Blair just alluded to and gave some details about our data, I just want to point out a couple of things that we think really stand out and makes our data set unique in its offering in the US and around the world. Again, the 3-second capture rate, which you see at the top left-hand side, and the very low latency that we have getting the data across from the origin, the OEM level to us, will provide you with that granularity that you need to be able to do analysis, as we're going to show today. On the other side, on the right-hand top side, we are showing the actual vehicle tracks, over 1.3 billion per month. And our data, as you see, is very much pinpointed to the roadways. So there's no noise from mobile phones or other types of devices around it. It's a very clean cut and crisp data set. And that allows us, together with the accuracy as portrayed in the left bottom corner, to really identify, specific areas, speeds on highway lanes, but also even specific vehicle types. And that information together, of course, is very powerful for today's use case. And in the bottom right corner, we're showing our events, which are able to pinpoint, for instance, harsh braking, harsh acceleration, hotspots. And coupled with the more traffic insights, will give you actionable information that you could use to for your traffic management. Mm-hmm. So we're using the real connected vehicle data, and I saw already a question from the chat. So yes, we get the vehicle data directly from the vehicle via the OEM backend. And why is that so important? So the device is embedded in the car, it's powered by the vehicle, and therefore the accuracy and the position of the GPS device is much better than any handheld or aftermarket device. So it has a circumference of around 3 meters, where telematics devices have a much further reach, 20 meters or more. And of course, road sensors, they're 10 meters, 100 meters, and they're also a fixed installation, so hard to move and costly to maintain. So that's why we believe in the power of the connected vehicle. So setting Eimar up for his presentation, we've been looking at the specific, time of year where we were working together with the Eastern Transportation Coalition, and actually, we're in the middle of that POC now, but we are actually looking back here today a bit in history, not too far away, just a month, where we're looking at FRC 1, 2, and 3 for 6 states along, the southern U.S. coast that's normally plagued by hurricanes and other bad weather. And it was quite a challenge to see if we could do some real-time information on those road classes and the underlying road network, with our big data and the application that Moonshadow can deploy. All right, so we looked at these 6 states and the data points that we have around there. We have a bit of a lower data point, and in all fairness, that's still due to COVID and the aftermath of it. But as you can see, we still have around 68 billion data points a month for these 6 states alone, and over 167 million journeys started. So that already gives you an indication of the width and breadth of the data and the vastness of it. And also to give you a little bit of insight on how the data exchange and processing is going about. So we are providing Moonshadow with the raw data, so that amount of data that we just showed, snap to an OSM version of the road network, and then bringing that into Moonshadow. Also, we were applying some scaling based on some reference data that we got from the HPMS. So we could build a model for volume estimates on the roadways that we know. We apply the scaling. So together with the raw data and the segment data with the volumes, we are able to give you the real-time point data that will be shown on a viewer from the Moonshadow application. And sort of in parallel, we're working on providing as much as a real-time segment volume that we can get to with the current data that we have. So for the ones that are more on the engineering side, you will realize that providing segment volumes on this level is quite a challenge. So this is one of the things that we are going to work through. Having said that, it's my pleasure to hand over the presentation to Eimar, the CEO from Moonshadow, who is going to give you, the details of how he was able to handle our data.
Yeah, first, thanks to Jaap and Blair and Henk for putting together this webinar today and giving us an opportunity to showcase our technology that we've worked on for many, many, many years to such a large group. We started working with the wejo data back in February of this year. It's truly enormous. We've worked with very many different data sets from connected vehicles, and this is truly an amazing data set. First, a little bit about Moonshadow. We're located in Eugene, Oregon. We are a core database technology developer, and we focus on database technology, creating database technology and engines specifically for data coming off of moving objects. So we usually refer to it as a geospatial time series database engine. And data that is coming off of vehicles or data that's coming off of mobile phones has a very different nature than the traditional databases, which are captured well in an SQL environment. And so what we've developed is a database engine that's much more performant for this specific type of data. What we're doing here with wejo for the Eastern Transportation Coalition is we're tracking, as Jaap was explaining, the vehicles. We're receiving data from wejo on the vehicles in these 6 states. It's probably around, it's probably over 2 million connected vehicles. And as you see in this schema, those vehicles report directly to the OEM servers. They pass it on to the wejo servers. wejo moves the data through AWS to the Moonshadow live traffic servers. And then we do several things. So we make that data available immediately as waypoint data. So users of Moonshadow live traffic can pull maps or charts or graphs directly using that waypoint data, but we also use the waypoint data to snap it to the roads, and we're snapping it to FRC 1, 2, and 3 only. We're using OpenStreetMaps to do that. And then once the road snapping is completed, it's of course sent back into our Moonshadow Live traffic servers, and then we serve the maps with road line information. So one of the very important things is latency, and I define the latency here a little bit more broadly than what's usually done. I see latency as the moment from that a capture point leaves the vehicle to the moment you see it on your screen. So truly the complete latency of what you're seeing, how far behind is that image that you're seeing. So what's so really beautiful about the wejo data is the 3-second interval. At 3-second interval data, you can do so much more than what you can do with 30 or 45-second interval data, as it's coming from a lot of other sources. This data, you can see things that you can't see with other data sets. We are receiving, during peak hours on the East Coast, we're receiving over 100,000 updates per second, sustained. So we are literally receiving from 100,000 driving vehicles, we're receiving their location, their speed, their heading, other things every second, and we're processing that. So again, goes into the waypoints, and then we update the map on the web browser, every 10 to 20 seconds. So we're usually running anywhere from 45 to 90 seconds behind. So even with this enormous volume of millions of vehicles, we're able to produce the maps within 60 to 90 seconds. So the frequency is also very important. How quickly does it update to your browser? So this is, if this is T0, then it takes about 10 to 20 seconds for the data to reach the wejo servers from the vehicle, from the moment it left the vehicle. Then the road snapping takes some time at our end. There's no way around that. But we're able to show data on maps within 30 seconds to 90 seconds usually. So that's the technology. Now let's go look at the fun stuff. So this is what we're really about: millions of journeys and billions of waypoints. We've seen days where we had 2.5 billion waypoints coming from wejo. So this is our interface. This is Moonshadow Live Traffic, formerly known as DB for IoT. So Moonshadow Live Traffic, and every dot that you see here is a vehicle reporting its position. And so what you can do in Moonshadow Live Traffic, you can view the data as I was talking about per waypoint. This is what you're seeing now. Or you can view the data as the road lines. And again, we snapped it to FRC 1, 2, and 3 for the purposes of this proof of concept for the coalition. We can also snap it to all roads, and then you get a much more refined and granular road network as you zoom in. Moonshadow Live Traffic is an interactive platform, so it works just the same way as Google Maps or Bing Maps. You can zoom in and out, and you can pan to any area. And so what I did here is I zoomed in. I think this is Miami, and you start to see the dots. The dots are colored by the attribute of your choice. So you can, in this case, we selected speed as the attribute to color the data by, and you immediately see the freeways and the high traffic areas pop up. So the colorization here, you can see it in the legend. 0 is colored in red, then 50, and this is in kilometers an hour. This is in yellow, 50 kilometers an hour, and then 100 kilometers an hour is in blue and green. So that's how you see these freeways pop up very quickly. So what we do with Moonshadow Live Traffic, of course, is our customers, the DOTs in these states, want to look at the situation as it is say the last 30 minutes or the last 15 minutes, and you can set that. So what we show here is the waypoints in a detailed area for the last 30 minutes. And you see, you know, all is reasonably well on these freeways. An off-ramp, of course, the speeds are a little bit lower, and then the local streets, of course, and parking areas are much lower speeds, which is what you would expect. So again, you can switch between looking at the points or looking at just the major roads in this case. And so what happens here is we're calculating on the fly the average speed as was seen in the last 30 minutes for every road that is FRC 1, 2, or 3 in OpenStreetMaps. And you immediately see, you know, there is a delay over here on that freeway where these on-ramps or off-ramps are coming. So that's probably a source of that. You also see that when looking at roads, you get a quick overview, but of course you lose some of the details at on-ramps or off-ramps. So instead of looking at a time period, which I did before, I was looking at the last 30 minutes, you can also look at the last known location. As a matter of fact, you know, there's a little time slider over here. It's, as I mentioned before, it's a time series geospatial database environment. So you can move in time and you can move in space. The moving in space, everybody is very familiar with. Everybody's using products like Google Maps, and you know how to zoom and pan, and you know how to use your navigation system in your car. So moving through time is a little bit less, is something that people are not used to as much, of course. We don't do that. But in this case, we have a time series database. So you can go back to any point in time for which we have data, or what you can do is you can just say, show me the last situation and update it as soon as it's coming in. And that's what you're seeing over here. So now on to, you know, everything the things that you guys really came to see here, the impact of Hurricane Sally. So we set this system up late August. We know this was coming from Jaap and his team. And so we started ingesting data, and then on the 16th, on the 11th, Hurricane Sally started to develop over the Atlantic. And then on the 16th, it hit right here in Mobile, Alabama, and Pensacola. What you see here is we can pull in, you see the wejo data visualized in Moonshadow Live traffic over here. So you see the same image with the speeds and the points. What you also see is the landmass of, you know, the United States, the Caribbean. And what we do is we have the ability to pull in the NASA GIF layers. And so the NASA GIF layers are the clouds that you're seeing here, and they have a wonderful system. They keep one image per day historically, and Moonshadow Live traffic will automatically match the correct image to the moment in time that you're looking at. So we're looking at September 11th over here, and you can see at the top here, we're looking at the 11th until the next morning. Let's zoom in, let's move forward in time. So this is September 13. You see that Sally is now entering the Gulf of Mexico. One more move, and this is on the 14th. This is 2 days before landfall. So you see the eye of the storm over here, and it's slowly approaching towards the coast. And keep this image in mind, because what you see here is that the external parts of that storm are already over the Florida Panhandle. So they already have a very strong impact. And we'll see later on, when we start looking at the data in detail, what that meant for the local situation down there. So the 15th, 1 day closer, you see the hurricane is moving in. Everybody's still happily driving around. That you can see that as well. And now we start to zoom in. So what we did here is we're not looking at the complete data set anymore. So what we did here is we selected all the journeys, all the trips that had one touch point in this area, in the Florida Panhandle, basically. So if a journey started, had a waypoint, or terminated in this rectangle roughly over here, we will show all points of that journey. And that's why you see these spider webs going out for people driving all the way, even down to the southern Florida coast. So zooming in further, now we are on the 16th. This is the moment of impact. So you see that the eye of the storm is going over Mobile. There's a huge impact also on the panhandle, and you can see that from the aerial photography from the satellites. So zooming in further, you see speeds are very low over here, and they're a little bit higher, the further away you get from that impact area. And zooming in further, this is Mobile, Alabama. You can't see the landmass anymore because it's obscured by the NASA GIF layer showing the clouds. And then the next image shows you a comparison. So one of the things that you can do, as I mentioned before, it's a time series geospatial database. You can open multiple windows into time and space, and you can synchronize the space. So what we did here is that we looked at the exact same situation the day that Hurricane Sally hit. That's in the top half of the screen. This is the 16th. And Hurricane Sally hit between 5:30 and 6 a.m. This is the exact same situation 1 week earlier. So exact same view, exact same situation 1 week earlier. I don't know, I didn't research it, but I assume that a week earlier was probably, pretty normal day. You see, the cloud cover here is just, fine. There's no big hurricane coming in or anything like that. And then when we zoom in further, I've turned off the cloud layer now. When we zoom in further, we start to see the first interesting things. And a lot of these you would expect. So what we see here over here is there is no driving. This is a low-lying area directly on the coast. I'm sure it was heavily impacted by Sally at that moment. What you see below here is you recognize the road lines, not because the data is snapped here, but because these are the waypoints that were generated every 3 seconds. And here you also see how important that 3-second interval is, because you really start to recognize the road lines even with a limited amount of data. So what we see here is normal road lines. We see where the roads are. We can see that from the data from wejo, empty over here. And here you see Pensacola and Mobile, Alabama. Over here you see every little road has a car on it in that time period, in that 1 hour period that we're looking at. Here, many roads have no traffic at all during that time period. So in Moonshadow Live Traffic, we can use different type of backgrounds. So here we've switched to an Esri dark background. We can also work with backgrounds that customers supply. And so with a dark background, it's a little bit easier to see what's happening. And one of the things that really surprised us is we see a lot of little red dots. And the way that wejo defines a journey is that the moment you turn the ignition on, you start with the journey. So what it looks like is that in that 1 hour period that we're looking at, a lot of people actually did get into the car, fired it up, but didn't go anywhere. Why? I have no idea. So just as an aside, we're showing some insights here, but at Moonshadow and wejo, we're not PEs, we're not traffic engineers. Wejo provides the data, we provide the analytical tools, and then we need to work, of course, with our customers, the DOTs, the traffic planners, the traffic engineers, to draw the conclusions from that using our technology. So as I mentioned before, we're road snapping the data. So what you see over here, still the same dual screen setup. These are the main roads. We're snapping it to FRC 1, 2, and 3. And what you see here, all the major roads, except for some little pieces here, have the higher speeds. And what you see here, and this is the week before, the bottom screen is 1 week earlier, same time period. And this is, and what we're looking at here is we're looking on the 16th, 4:30 in the morning to 5:30 in the morning. And here we see much lower speeds, and we don't even see vehicles in sections of the freeway over here. So let's jump through that, and I can sort of jump through this as an animation. So it jumps 30 minutes with every shot that I do. And you see that the bottom screen stays pretty much the same throughout this entire time period. But the top screen, there are many places where during that 30-minute time period that we're visualizing, there is no traffic on that portion of the freeway. So you can also see that chunks of the freeway that weren't affected in the beginning are affected later on as the hurricane is moving inland. So that was sort of an overview of that area. And let's zoom in a little bit further. So what we're seeing here, we're looking at Interstate 10 between, on the right side here, Pensacola, and on the left side here, Mobile, Alabama. We've set the time here. We're looking at over here, we generate a little table. We're looking at Thursday the 10th through Saturday the 19th. And we're looking at all traffic, all observed traffic that is passing through this polygon that we drew. And what you see immediately is, you know, in the bar chart below here is that usually on a day you have, you know, 1,400 to 1,800 vehicles that wejo observed that are passing through. And then on the 14th, it drops. And the 15th and the 16th, actually the traffic volumes that we observed are fairly the same. And then the 17th, it jumps up again. Well, remember that we saw the clouds moving in on the 14th. That's this day. So that was the day that the traffic volume dropped dramatically for traffic passing through this corridor over here. And as you can imagine, we can do this. We can draw any type of polygon, or we can select, you know, cities or counties and generate similar analyses. And then it's really, again, up to the transportation engineers to tell us what that means. So let's take a little closer look on that traffic going through Interstate 10. So this is a normal day. So what we assume a normal day. And this is the normal pattern that you would expect over the day by traffic volume. So what I'm looking at here is on the left side, it starts, the x-axis is the time of day. So this is midnight. You see a low traffic volume that's observed in the morning. Morning peak, it ramps up, stays high, second peak, and then in the evening, it gradually drops down. And this is a pattern that many of you who analyze data about transportation and traffic will recognize. This is a very standard pattern. Now, this is the day before Sally hit. This is the 15th. So you see very different patterns here. It's much choppier. The top is much lower. So the scale is different here. So this is 40 trips. And this was 200 trips. And that's per, it splits it up in 100 different segments. So you see that here 220 was it topping out at, and here it's topping out at 40. So we're back to that 20% of the traffic, and the pattern is a little bit different as well. This is the pattern on the day that Sally made landfall. And here, of course, you see very dramatically what happened during that day. There is almost no traffic. There's a couple of vehicles that made it through on this time period, very early in the morning. And you know, remember, Sally hit right around this time frame. And then a couple of people, I'm sure they were guys, a couple of guys, you know, made it there to go early on. And then as of 12:30, you see it started to ramp up. So what we're learning from doing these types of analyses is that by using that incredibly precise data from wejo, you can literally see when roads were blocked and when traffic was returning to normal. So this is, you know, I find it fascinating. I'm a little bit of a data nerd, as some people say, but I'm not a transportation engineer. So, you know, it's really up to you guys to tell us what all of this means. Another question, which some of the people, I think Stan from NREL asked this question, you know, can we see when people started to leave the coast? So what we did is we drew a polygon around the, the direct coastal zone and included Mobile, Alabama. And we started to look at the net outflow or inflow of trips during the days spanning around Hurricane Sally. And so what we see here is that on the, let me read this, this is the 13th. On the 13th, people started to move out. Sorry, on the 12th, people started to move out. On the 13th, that was by far, so this is 3 days before Sally hit. That's by far the highest volume of people moving out of the area. And then a lower number on the 14th, a lower number of the 15th. And then they started coming back in that afternoon of the 16th. So, and again, these are the wejo observations. What we're working on with the Eastern Transportation Coalition is to come up with scaling factors so we can automatically scale and do an estimate of the actual total volume, you know, during all of these events, you know, on these roads. So another thing that of course is interesting is to see when did people leave and where did they go? So in Moonshadow Live Traffic, you have the ability to look at the data by waypoint. You have the ability to look at the data by a road line segment, and also you can look at the data by area. So what we did here is we defined a Mobile and Baldwin County over here. And we're looking, in this case, we're looking on the 14th, looking at traffic that is leaving these counties. We excluded traffic that was between or within any of these counties. And so this is where they went on the 14th. And these are the number of journeys that we observed. If a county name is undefined, it just means it's a county outside of the area that we're tracking right now with the solution for the Eastern Transportation Coalition. So this is the 15th. This is the day before the hurricane hit, and you see, you know, the total number is reduced dramatically. People really started leaving, you know, the day before and the day before that. And this is on the 18th, you know, 2 days after. And now we see volumes are jumping back up. We see thousands of trips that have been observed. Now the reverse we did as well. So how many trips went from a county to any of these two counties? And you see, you know, people came as far away as you know, deep into Florida over here. So again, this is September 13. This is the 16th. This is the day Sally hit. And then of course, and you see a lot of trips, a lot of people coming back in that afternoon. And then 2 days later, which we can see probably is more the regular traffic patterns that we would be seeing. So we can zoom in, you know, even further, and we can look at individual road segments. So here we look at the Pensacola Bay traffic. So what we're seeing over here, this is September 9, looking at all trips that made it through. This is I-98. So this is the observed traffic by 15-minute increment over the day. And you see the pattern here. And this scales from 0 to 70 over here. This is September 16th. And really, you know, the scale is different here. You know, we're observing 2 and 2 and 1 and 1 and 1 and 1 vehicles that made this bay crossing. So we're seeing very, very, very little traffic on the day that Sally hit on September 16th, which is what you would expect on a day like that. And this is the other bay crossing. This is the Florida 281. So this is September 9. You know, we assume it's a fairly regular day, same day of the week as the 16th. And then you see no traffic whatsoever in the morning. You know, this is a bridge, and you see the coast. This is next to the coast. So this would be very high impact area. So let me see where
that people sort of stuck to, you know, evacuating early and not returning till like after the events.
Well, so we can see that from the data, and you know, we see that they left, and that was in an earlier slide. Most of the people did leave, you know, around the 13th, so a couple of days before. And I think what would be fascinating is to have people involved with emergency management and people, you know, with the DOTs look at when were the evacuation orders issued. You know, what was the predicted path, the cone of uncertainty of that hurricane on the 13th and the 14th? You know, how did people respond to that? And what I think is so unique about the data that we have here is we can actually show what happened. We can show what people were doing when traffic was taking place. You can see that with our technology, with your data and the DB4IoT, the Moonshadow Live Traffic Platform, but we don't know the local situation. We're not involved with the traffic management at all. And this is the actual platform. This is our technology. So this is the current situation as of, what is it, 44:07. This is 30-40 seconds ago. So, and again, it's a live platform. I can zoom in on any area, and we're working literally with hundreds of millions of points, and the data is coming in real time, you know, running, you know, 30 to 90 seconds behind from when it was recorded at the vehicle. So, Blair, do you want to, do you have some videos you want to play?
Maybe combine it with the Q&A, as you know, we're...
Oh yeah, we can do that, absolutely.
Yeah,
so we can absolutely do that. So
Blair, it's your call.
Yeah, Aymar, I think you have the video to play on the end of this presentation. So
okay.
If you want to keep
I just need to forward.
Yep. No.
Oh, look at that. Okay, smart. So this is a little...
Yeah.
This is a little pre-recorded video, and you know, this shows you vehicle movement. Again, you know, when you only see, of course, the movement that was recorded by vehicles that wejo has on their platform. It's colored again by speed. So what you're seeing is the higher speeds, 100 kilometers an hour. Yellow 50, and then the red dots that you're seeing are the lower speeds. So instead of looking at a single point in time as we were doing before, this is the range mode, and this shows you 700,000 vehicles were running 40 seconds behind the last registration that we received. And here, this is an animation that was taken, and that's why it's updating all the time. 18 seconds behind on 700,000 vehicles or so. So the system is updating automatically. So our users can zoom in on any area, define whether they want to look by waypoint or by snapped data, and then they can simply let it run as long as they want it to run. So should we open it up for questions, Blair?
Yep, that's great.
And this is, this is the live product. This is what our customers are seeing, right this minute. And one of the things I always like to do is to put a little clock, the actual clock of the time. This is an independent internet clock website. And you can basically see the last data that we received is for 12:47 17, and it just updated again, and it's 12:47, 54. So we're now with a latency of under a minute, and we're probably updating, every 15 seconds or so. So, okay. So Blair, go ahead, take it away.
Thank you, Aymar, so much. That was incredible. I hope everybody really got to see a nice understanding of really what this data can do in real time, and really with a partner like Moonshadow. So Aymar, if you'll flip to the final slide, I just want to I know that we're running short on time, so I just want to give everybody our contact information should they have additional questions, to really make sure that you all can get in touch with us. I think, the main point of this presentation was to really show that, the wejo data provides a wealth of information, for before, during, and after real live events like hurricanes. And working with Moonshadow, we're able to provide insights around that. This again is something that transportation planners and emergency managers and departments of transportation have not had access to information like this really ever before. And, again, we know that we do provide the most accurate, unique, largest set of connected car data in the United States. And, because of the vastness of our data, there's a lot that we can do wejo internally, but there's a lot that we have to do with partners like Moonshadow that really bring our data to light in this exact case study. So, they were able to provide their live traffic platform to really bring the movement on the road, what was happening in real time, the billions of data points, and really that 3-second latency to light. So, we really hope that everybody was able to get a nice sense of that today. It's fortunately or unfortunately, it's a new concept. What is connected car data? How does it work? So we hope that we answered some of those questions today for you all, but certainly are here, to continue those conversations from a wejo perspective and from a Moonshadow perspective. So the next slide gives our contact information. If you would like to continue the conversation. We did have a couple of questions that came in the Q&A that we can go ahead and address. So from Mark, regarding, and this can go to Aymar or to Jaap, probably more to Aymar, but regarding the work with Hurricane Sally, what was the single biggest benefit gained from the solution, and to who? And I'm going to go ahead and chime in there that, we put out a press release of a bigger announcement on Friday, really working with 6 state departments of transportation. So I think, the headline there is that this data analysis was really used for departments of transportation to help their residents in their states and in their cities respond better to hurricane emergency evacuation. I mean, as you were able to see, this data really shows what roads are clogged. When we block this road because of this, who goes where, who's sheltering in place, who's actually evacuating. I think that's, to me, as more of a marketing person and as a consumer, that's really what's fascinating. So Mark, to answer your question, I'll let Aymar speak to it a little bit more specifically.
Sure.
I think it's really those, the departments of transportation and the city managers, right, Aymar?
Yeah, so just to give a little bit of an outline of where we're at, the system, we started pulling in data from wejo at the end of August for the entire region. The system didn't go live to the users, the DOTs, until I think the 3rd week of September. So there was no use during Sally. We retain all the data for historic analyses. And so now this data is available, and it's going to be made available to those DOTs in Florida and Alabama for historic analyses. And I also just want to emphasize, this is completely new technology. I mean, we need to learn what you guys need and how the tool should work. And at the DOT's end and the traffic management people, you guys need to learn how our tools work and how we can make them better, and how to change your working procedures to make use of this data. You know, for instance, one of the things that happens a lot during evacuations is lane direction reversion. So with this data, we can see that. We can see when a road is clogged, and we can see the data from wejo 3 meters, as Jaap was saying at the beginning of this webinar. 3 meters tells you what lane you're in. So we can show a DOT staffer or emergency management personnel which roads have lane direction reversals in place at that moment. So
yeah, an interesting fact I saw is, you know, sort of researching this, that for instance, navigation devices or apps are actually a lot of times not working during this period. So people have their phones on standby. And I think one of the people on the call said, you know, those short trips we saw during the hurricane were probably people trying to charge their phones as the power went down. So it was like, yeah, I think it was a really good, and it shows you, right,
so
as
funny.
long as you have, yeah, as long as you have a vehicle that's actually moving, we're still able to see the people, you know, moving about in their areas. And not so possible with the mobile phone. Plus, it would also influence the, you know, the navigation device, making making it think the road is empty where it's not, or, you know, the other way around. So that's one thing I think that the data could really help by providing an overview, you know, comparing it to, you know, let's say the bigger popular navigation apps that are dependent on mobile phones. And I think that difference stands out as well. But that's sort of, you know, to be decided, to be proven. But I think that's one of those takeaways that we saw. And of course, you know, where very, very significant, where the traffic was so much down, you know, you could possibly assume it was a flooded area or the roads were no longer passable. That, you know, we hope that it shows some correlation, for instance, between that and the evacuation routes that people could take.
Yep.
Yeah. Thank you, Aymar and Jaap. We have several other questions in the chat, and I think, you know, we're kind of getting it to time. You know, somebody has asked about how we plan to use this data and information for additional emergency evacuations like the fires on the West Coast. And I think that's something that we're still discovering and figuring out. I think a large part of to Aymar's point, this is new technology. This is a new proof of concept. We're still really figuring this out, and we're working as quickly as we can to make sure that the right people have the right data. I mean, again, wejo's mission is data for good. You know, we only do what we do to improve the way that we work, live, and travel. And this is really a big point of that. So, you know, to not, a lot of people are dropping off at this point. So just to not burden people with some additional answers, our email contacts are here. Jaap and myself are able to answer questions from a wejo perspective. Obviously, wejo.com is a great place for you to go to contact us and to have more conversations. And then Aymar is absolutely available from a Moonshot perspective. I think, you know, we struggled, to be honest, when it came to looking at this proof of concept of, I think somebody else asked a question about how many people actually evacuate. How do we really know? And we, you know, we have a lot of heightened mobility insight, but really what it means is where we need partners like a lot of you on this webinar to help us analyze, to help us aggregate, to help us really understand what are the use cases of the data. Because we can sit here and say that we know, but at the same time, there's a lot of people that could be benefiting from, you know, from this real-time data analysis, but also the data itself. So with that, I will close this out. Aymar, Jaap, big kudos to you guys. So appreciate you both. You're very busy, important people. And we're so glad to have you here today. Again, everybody on this webinar, if you have additional questions, our emails are here. I'm sure if you've actually signed up for this webinar, we have your contact information and we will follow up with some email and some way to get in touch with us. But thank you to everybody. I know we're all so busy in this crazy COVID land of digital world, and it was good to have all of you join us today. So with that, we will sign off, and we will aggregate some additional questions and some of those responses out to you. But big thank you to Jaap and Eimar, and cheers to Data for Good.
All right. Thanks everybody
Thanks,
for your
Blair.
time.
Thanks, Jaap.
We appreciate it that you participated, took the time to stay on. Thanks very much.
We appreciate you all. Cheers.
Bye-bye.